Let me recap the earning call. Yeah. They said, Mike, don't touch the Bitcoin stack. Now I'm buying more while they fading into black. SGRC printing, engine running clean, watching debt transform into the Bitcoin dream. Turned on the BTC drive, no shame in my face. 65 billion and I'm still winning the race. They panic when I say, sell a little coin just to prove the whole market doesn't break or get destroyed. Company fine, Bitcoin fine, world still spins. You scream Ponzi while the weak cave in. Bitcoin getting stronger every cycle, reborn while I keep building through the middle of the storm. I'd like nothing better than to rip your wings off. Every short position getting weaker when we lift off. I'd like nothing better than to rip your wings off. We used the equity ATM, yeah, we said it with pride. Then this DRC machine came alive on the side. More tools, more options, more fuel for the fire. While the shorts pray every quarter that the stock expires. I buy Bitcoin like development land. Buy it low, build it up, then expand what we can. Flip the profit back again into more BTC. That's the difference between conviction and jealousy. I like nothing better than to rip your wings off. Watching every short seller realize there's no second best. I like nothing better than to rip your wings off. There is no second best.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
And this is exactly what these Bitcoin Cash people are building.
Shout out to the Dragon Riders and the House of the Dragon.
Because it's a completely different situation than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how frogs can't boil. And they added a bunch of new opcodes and they're doing a bunch of things over there.
It will be the most hated rally ever because a lot of people from some propaganda hate Bitcoin Cash.
And we're live.
All right. Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 182, BLISS review, and we're also going to do a bunch of clips to fill in for our lack of a guest. Today is Sunday, the 31st of May, 2026. BCH price is completely wrecked, $303.76 US cents, which is way down. One BTC sat buys 243.7 BCH sats, also way down, and one ETH buys 667 megasats, also way down. Selene 30-day, 670 users, and the token or TVL 12,001. So today it's just Jet and I. Jet doing the producing, as always. Forgot to mention him. Hey man, how you doing? How's things been since BLISS last couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, busy, but good. I feel like BLISS is always so kind of inspiring. And then I get home and I'm back to my day job and I'm like, what am I doing? What the fuck? Why are we wasting our time here? But yeah.
Well, that's the right energy.
Yeah.
That's what we should be. That's what we should be getting going. And year after year, it's just sort of excited. But for me, it's kind of like the opposite. You know, it's kind of like, yeah, BLISS is inspiring. I love seeing everyone have the greatest time. It's just so much fun. But then as soon as it's over and I'm checked out, man, I just crash for like a week or two. I mean, obviously we're putting out the bonus content and stuff like that, but it's just not top of my agenda to just do some more heavy lifting after that's over. But then I have a couple of weeks to recover, and then I'm like, all right, let's start planning next year. I'm already keen for it, you know.
Yeah, I'm still waiting, I guess, for another couple weeks before I have that couple weeks of decompression.
Yeah. Everyone's schedule is different. Right. So let's just start off with it. I feel like usually if we talk about the price going down, usually saying it's an attack is cope. Obviously, there's huge manipulation. Obviously, Tether is printing up billions. Obviously, the exchanges don't have all the BCH they do. Okay, all of that is true. But the realistic reality is that we can just affect that by making more adoption and by doing bank runs to withdraw from exchanges and by changing public sentiment, all the stuff we're already doing, right? So usually, the price is down. Like, you can't say it's an attack every time, because most times it isn't an attack. It's just we're not doing that well, or other coins are doing better, or the market is selling off, or like some whale has decided to check out, or there could be 1,000 reasons. So I don't often say that it's a big attack when the price has dumped. But this time, I honestly think this is an attack. So we had at Layla, we had the poison block attack, which Callan and others noticed, and then Callan talked about. If you didn't follow that, it's in Callan's BLISS talk on day 3, I think it was. Maybe day 2. Anyway, you can check the live stream and find it. So that did not happen at Velma or Jessica, right? There was no shenanigans right as the network upgrade was happening, at least none that were detected, and certainly none that stopped the upgrade going live. Of course, this one didn't either, but it was clearly sort of an attempt to. And then right after that, the price has nosedived just straight down, over 40% down, 450 to 300. And on top of that, Binance have closed their BCH withdrawals. You can't withdraw BCH. God knows if they even have any. Probably not. Or if they do, they're trying to protect their stack at the moment. Come on, that can't all be coincidences, right?
Yeah. What the hell is Binance? So do they still have their BCH reserve audit thing?
I don't know. I didn't check, but I can maybe just quickly look that up. I wonder.
Yeah, I'm curious, just because it seemed like it took forever for them to finally do that, and for them to be like, yeah, we've done it, and then whoop, no more withdrawals. Very suspicious.
So I do think that it is genuinely, because some people were like, sometimes people joke about it being an attack, but I think this one, okay, they do have it here on their proof of reserves page. All right. BCH ratio 100.41%. Net account balances 555,555, yet not very suspicious number there. 0.739 BCH, and their on-chain wallet balance is 557,843.569. So according to them, they've got about 2,000 BCH buffer, 2,200, 300 buffer on 500, on 500,000 BCH, basically. Now that's what they say, but also they were closing withdrawals. I don't know if they're still closed, but in the last 2 days ago, they were shut and people were not able to withdraw their BCH. So
did they make a statement about this?
No. They never do. They never say anything. When would that ever happen? When would they be like, the only reason they would make a statement, I think, is if BCH gets so big that we can create enough chaos for their marketing department. We're so far away from that. We're at least 3 orders of magnitude away from that. But if they shut BTC withdrawals like this, it's possible that everyone retweeting and being like, what a scam, could...
Binance is over. Binance is dead.
Yeah, exactly. Could force them to make some sort of statement. We're nowhere close to that. But by the time, it's going to be great once we are at that point. And at that point, it would just be the whole system will just be breaking apart once the BCH community has that kind of clout and people are just flowing all their money out into stable coins and whatever else, right? So yeah,
it does kind of surprise me to hear that they have 500,000 coins still.
Well, it doesn't really surprise me. I think I wouldn't be surprised with 1 million or even a little bit more. 2 million is probably a lot, but it's something like Coinbase has generally more than 1 million, 1.2, 1.3 million. it's sort of like Coinbase is up there, like with Satoshi, in terms of the biggest holders. And then interestingly, like BCH doesn't have a Michael Saylor, right? Saylor now has like 800,000 BTC or something like that, and he's still acquiring more of it. So he is like a mega whale, Binance, Coinbase, Satoshi. He's in that league, you know? And so he's just such a systemic risk to their ecosystem. But as far as if we do have a whale like that, they don't make much noise about it. And so, like, what you gonna do?
Yeah, we had MFI being like, "Oh, we're gonna buy a bunch of BCH or invest in our own mining or something along that." And then the most recent news is they got a delinquency notice from NASDAQ because they haven't filed their shit in time.
Well, that's unfortunate. I hope they get around to that. I'm sure if there's 500 million on the line, you know, the paperwork will get done eventually. But yeah, I would not be surprised if they haven't bought a single BCH yet. Maybe like the finance guy has like half a BCH on his Selene wallet that somebody onboarded him to and got him excited about this, but they have not actually bought any. And it might be a good thing, like if the price goes down and then they think, okay, now's the time to get into it.
Well, their stock has also gone down quite a bit since they made this announcement.
Oh, good. It sounds like they're aligned with BCH already, so that's perfect.
And then it's just like I'm thinking, okay, if you've made the announcement that you're going to buy this huge chunk of coins, and then you have the capital set aside from it, then you can't say like, this is the date I'm going to buy it, right? Because you're just fucking yourself. Like, people are going to front run you.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what happens, or if it's a big old nothing burger.
I mean, I would put at least 50 or 60% odds on it that they never buy any. Like it was just these press releases, the hoaxes continue. But on the other hand, like you say, you can't announce when you're going to do it. And at that scale, you probably are doing like some OTC trades, which still can make a big difference in the price. Because if you're like, okay, well, I'm going to buy up, you know, several thousands of coins or tens of thousands of coins or hundreds of thousands of coins, whatever, off these deep pools in the back of Coinbase or Binance or something like. Well, maybe that's why Binance doesn't have any, because they sold 100K to MFI. But they do that, and then they're like, yeah, but we have, you know, like 10 grand BCH that we need a spot buy at the end, you know, just the last few crumbs. And then that makes a titanic difference on the order books whenever they get around to doing that. So that's kind of my expectation.
I also wonder, like, you know, okay, full disclosure here. I have 10 shares of MFI. 10 ain't worth shit. It's like $100. But like, now that I am a shareholder, can I be like, hey, what's the deal with this BCH thing? That's why I bought in. Like, I need to know what's going on here.
Yeah, maybe you can call them up. Like, you can find out when their shareholder meeting is. Maybe you need to go in person. It needs to be like the Big
It's in
Short
Hong Kong.
or like
I'm not
any of
going
those.
to Hong Kong.
Well, we'll find a representative, a local representative.
It'll be my proxy.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we can dig up somebody, can go along and just be like, guys, what are you doing? Like, where's this?
OJ Master Pig.
Exactly. He would be perfect for it as well too. His way of phrasing questions would just be perfect for just this room of like 500 TradFi people that have never heard that this is even on the agenda. And then he's just in there explaining to them, like, guys, what are we doing about this $500 million in BCH? I don't even have any shares, by the way, but my mate wants to know. So he's got 10. So this is serious business. But all this is to say that we're under attack because we're winning. That's sort of how I feel about it. Like, the flip side of winning, our rising prominence, rising success, you know, we're always trying to get more visibility onto Bliss. We're trying to get more people interested in the upgrades and all that stuff. This is what's going to happen, right? It's just the bigger you get, the bigger the pool of fish, you know, that starts trying to eat you is, kind of thing.
Yes, but I do also like fall back to the, you know, don't attribute to malice what can be attributed to stupidity. And like, was the poison block attack really a poison block attack or just some idiot? Like, I know Callan was like, they rented a bunch of hash power, but that the fact that they could find this exploit but not double check that we were even susceptible to it is insane. Like, it's so stupid.
But that actually makes me more confident that it was a malicious attack, because it sounds exactly like the kind of thing you would do if you were being malicious. Was, okay, these stupid idiot BCH guys, I've not been paying attention for like a decade or whatever. I finally heard about this grand upgrade. I'll show them. Like, let me just get everything set up. Sometimes when you're doing something very complicated, what gets you is overlooking something simple, right?
Yeah.
Like, that, to me, that actually makes perfect sense. And a poison block attack is not just like, oh, I threw it together in my like basement. Like, you have to actually seriously know what you're doing. You have to be monitoring the vulnerability disclosures, of which there was one. It was like on the 5th of May or something. So it was only 10 days before the upgrade. So it's very believable that if you were an attacker, you would think, okay, they probably still got this, because A, they might not have fixed it in time, or B, they might not be aware of it, or, you know, with their upgrade, they're going to be busy with other stuff. I don't know. To me,
I think that makes sense.
I'm very confident that it was a malicious attack, but it's just that something like the attacks are escalating because we're winning, and just the whole community needs to be aware of the better we do, sort of the bigger the attacks are going to become. Like, that's a real, until we get past, there's a tipping point where we get past the point that each of the various people that would try and attack us kind of realizes, shit, I can't stop these guys. I've got to just buy some BCH and let them rip.
Yeah,
so
do you think the attacker has confidence in BCH now, being like, oh my god, they fixed this shit 6 years ago or whatever?
I think it certainly would have made an impression. But that's why the simple oversight makes sense to me, because it's the same thing that happens, not now, but a couple of years ago, when people would try and debate me on like Twitter on Bitcoin, where they'd be like, oh, this guy, he's got his Bitcoin Cash name and profile, and they'd make some stupid little like comment, and I would absolutely wreck them on it. And then they would be like, what? That was a bit weird. And then they'd make another like stupid comment, and I'd wreck them on that again. And then they'd either go silent, or maybe finally they, like, you would know that they would think, well, wasn't it what? And then they would maybe be digging into it or something. Like, people can be very, very overconfident about BCH in particular, but just in general, people can be so sure of themselves when they feel like this guy is in the camp of morons, you know?
Yeah, maybe it's that Dunning-Kruger thing where it's like, the more things you know, the more things you should realize you don't know. And it's not, people haven't got there yet.
Yeah, here we go. Dev Tipo says in the chat, I wouldn't be surprised if they only checked if there was a recent commit that fixed the bug. Exactly. That's exactly what I would expect. Oh, okay, dug up the repo, had a look at the latest release notes, no mention of it. Boom, let's rock and roll. Like, clearly they haven't done it yet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so all this is to say everyone should stay alert. And I also want to point out that Parry on USD has had perfect launch timing. Also, Moria USD, also BCH Bull, of course. Like, these volatility solutions are the way out of this kind of attack, where if they're not going to get us on upgrade attacks, they're going to try price attacks. And the solution to that is everybody being prepared for volatility, and as much as possible, extricating your financial dependencies, not all of your money, but your financial dependencies, from being linked to the BCH price, right? Just have income streams that are coming in regularly. That's a good thing. Holding some amount of stable coins to, you know, whatever allocation makes sense to you. And then, of course, across the ecosystem, as everyone does that, it just makes us more and more resilient, having dry powder to DCA over the next year or whatever. You know, if people are manipulating the price down, obviously continuing to practice self-custody and so forth. But we're just going to become resilient to this. I mean, we already fairly much are, right?
Yeah.
This is not like the first time we've seen this. It's the least effective that any price crash has ever been. But
You want to make a
we've still
prediction?
got you can make a prediction.
No, I don't want to just do it alone. Have an open
What's
question.
your prediction?
What do you? No. The framing for the prediction is how low do you think the price will go?
Probably not. I don't think much lower than it is now. Like
Yeah, I opened up.
maybe 250, maybe 225. I mean, who knows? They'll hear this. Okay, we've just dropped under 300, but it kind of was very rapid. Like it was from 450 to 300, and then it stopped. So that seemed to be like roughly the floor at which they stopped. You know, they either stopped trying to manipulate it or they just ran out of powder. I don't see it going down to 200, 150, 100. Like I just can't see it. Because also the previous upgrades, cash tokens, Jessica, Velma, we got huge pumps after those. And rightly so, because the community showed that it could ship a strong, powerful upgrade. And the market generally rewards reduced execution risk. This is a really good point somebody made about ETH one time, was that the Ethereum community gets value out of doing upgrades, whether or not the upgrades are good. Hopefully they are good, right? But even if the upgrade is bad, the fact that, let's say it's neutral, the fact that people can ship an upgrade and show that if an upgrade is needed, we can ship one, is itself confidence inspiring. Like the opposite is true of BTC, where they have not done an upgrade and all their upgrades have sucked. And if there is contention around an upgrade, it's going to create uncertainty, not confidence, right? Until it goes well. So anyway, that's where that is. Okay, so Bliss, thank you to everyone who attended, first and foremost. It was a record high. We hit 71, I believe, off the top of my head, attendees, which is a 40% growth from 50 the previous year. So that's a very substantial increase. As far as I'm aware, everyone had a great time. I haven't really heard any complaints about it. The bonus content that we put out there, Roscoe's Cash Script Workshop, the 2 Bliss backstage interviews, you can check in on it, as well as the live streams if you missed any part of that. And we had a podcast pre-show episode 181 that will be coming out as well soon too. So as well as obviously the event itself, there's been a ton of content for everybody watching online, and even people who were at the event. You know, you didn't necessarily have access to all of that, or you might have missed it at the time. So plenty of BCH for everyone to enjoy. What was your favorite part of the event?
I think it's always the same, honestly. Like meeting people that I have either known about or spoken to online for a long period of time, and then seeing them and being like, oh, you're not just a character, right? Like you're a real person with, you know, yeah, I think just that being like, oh, you know, we can actually have in-depth conversations when it's not online, or maybe just through text, not necessarily online. But yeah, so meeting Joel and Ken and John Moriarty, I think those were the biggest things to me, just because I've known of all of them since like the day that I got into cryptocurrency. Like I remember before the split, I remember reading about Ken and his wild antics back in the day. That being said, my second favorite thing was the Just a Bunch of Blocks talk by Jack. And I am a little sad that he didn't get to like round that off, but very eager to see what comes of that.
Yeah, I've got to sort of defend myself a little bit on that, because I've had several people be like, oh, I really wish Jack had more time for his talk. And I was kind of like, well, he already had. Firstly, we did cut it into his time a little bit with Callan's talk, because there was so much debate about that 1 minute block and so many people had their hands up. And I really wanted to try and get to as many people as possible. I thought it's so rare that we have everyone in the room on topic like that, right? So that was so critical. So he did start a little bit late relative to his scheduled slot. But even that said, I let him go over time more than his scheduled slot. And then even more than that as well, too. We actually cut into lunch quite significantly. And I gave him those, so he had far more than his allocated share of time. So I don't accept responsibility. Like, he could have planned how long his talk was going to take better. I think that was partly on him. But on the other hand, I think he was also trying to make a complicated point with a lot of detail. So, of course, he wanted to explain it in detail. That said, this sunlight, I love it. I think it's great. And I mean, I've heard that maybe there'll be more published about this proposal for people to debate and discuss in sort of the next month. So it would be cutting it super pretty fine for an upgrade for next year. So I think that's probably unlikely, because even if it came out and it was all perfect, it would still be cutting it pretty fine. But the more likely case is that that gives a round of iteration and so forth for like 2028. That then there's plenty of time to workshop all of the things. The idea has clearly been worked on quietly already for a while, so it's not like the very first version that we're seeing. But I think it's brilliant. I am so excited for something like that. I think that branding is great. Sunlight is such a strong, excellent name for it. And I think if we had something like that, so that 1 minute, so that any block time, it was kind of like you had the block time plus you had the sunlight sort of additional protection, then that would just win so many arguments, which is not why we should do anything, but it's a nice vindication of it. That if somebody was like, oh, zero conf is not that good, blah, blah, blah. Our coin has like 10-second blocks or something. And then you just say, yeah, but BCH has sunlight. And then they'd be like, what's that? And then you'd be like, look into that. It was the same thing that happened with ABLA. So many people were like, oh, but you're going to have another split over the block size, blah, 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 blah. And then you say, well, what about ABLA? And then they just have no response. And you just be like, here's the info, read up on it. And then that just destroyed everyone who made that argument for 6 months until they stopped trying it. And I think as well, because it combines so well, like we could do 1 minute blocks and sunlight. That's like a killer combo that I feel would put us way in the lead of all coins, probably, in terms of like zero conf or speed of transactions. 1 minute blocks gets us like back into maybe the top half of the pack, like faster than Litecoin. Zcash is currently going from 75 seconds to 25 seconds. So you can see like the industry is pushing in that direction. And it's not like 1 minute blocks would make us the fastest, far from it. Of course, we still have zero conf, right? But between 1 minute blocks and sunlight, I would be feeling really strong about our zero conf.
Yeah, and I'm really curious. I haven't like dug deep enough into things. But I'm curious if this would help ease some of the, like, I don't mean to name names here, but I know Marius is always like, oh, well, what about Avalanche? Like, the BCH community has this unhealthy, like, hatred towards Avalanche. And I can see it, like, but, I think that's the trauma of dealing with a split again and again and again. Would this help? Maybe I should just send him a message. Hey, would the sunlight proposal help your, I guess, lack of interest because we don't want to do Avalanche? We don't want that hybrid.
I'm gonna like, I can't speak for him. He can give his own take, but my guess is he won't be interested. He'll be like, no, I don't care, because as far as I can tell, it's one of those things, people either have an objection for having an objection, or they have an objection for an emotional reason or a tribal reason or some other reason. And having discussed and debated that with him several times, I really do feel like it's more in the emotional and tribal reason, actually. Like, it just seems like he was already kind of a bit upset with the BCH community, and then that has been the reason that he's used to say, like, what are you guys doing? Rather than the other way around, like, oh, Avalanche is so brilliant, and then the fact that nobody cared about that. Because there's literally eCash. he's like, I want BCH plus plus Avalanche, and you're like, there's literally a community that is doing that thing to the letter. And is he interested in going to help them out or chatting more with them or getting involved in their scene? No, it's the opposite. He's left BCH to go do more of ETH, which is obviously not a good sign. I would love to have him more enthused and interested in the community. But when you see that happen, it's just kind of like, it's not that believable of a sticking point when you're not following the thing. People are just always like that, you know? I want X. Here is X. Oh, no, but not like that. Okay, so you didn't want X. You wanted to complain, or you wanted to vent some other grievances or feel superior or something, you know?
Yeah, and then I do really need to do a deep dive into things. But then also, like, what about the whole weak blocks? Or like, what was...
There's
shadows,
those,
like
infrastructure
partial...
blocks or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's all variants of the same thing, really. That's what I feel like. I mean, faster blocks is obviously faster blocks, but setting aside faster blocks, there's just this whole category of things, whether it's Avalanche, whether it's Sunlight, whether it's like weak blocks, whether it was, what's it called, tree chains, or whatever the Peter Todd like scam proposal was back in the day. It's all basically the same idea, which is just there's already kind of proof of work and or some other way that you can get everyone linked up super quick. And then it's just a question of how much confidence do you put into that and how do you merge it into the proof of work real blockchain over time. Like, okay, the details vary, but they all sort of, there's not like multiple categories as far as I can see of solution. Like they're all sort of in the same bucket. It's just the details that differ a little bit.
Yeah. I think just to maybe get my point across with my support for 1 minute blocks. Because I don't, first off, I don't think anyone objects to making ZeroConf better, right? And I like the idea that the more people we have using ZeroConf, you know, the better it is for everyone. Sure. You know, up to certain limits, of course. But I also think that, like, we need to meet people where they are. And even talking about confirmations with the average normie is a complete waste of time. Like, they don't care, and they shouldn't have to care. So, yeah, can we do the faster blocks just so that I don't have to wait 40 minutes for a confirmation to get a fucking like grocery gift card? And then we can work on making ZeroConf better. Because like interacting in the community, it's never been a problem. It's always been, you know, onboarding people or offboarding. You know, offboarding sounds weird, but you know, using the BCH.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. And that's one of the things that I really like about A, 1 minute blocks, and B, Sunlight, both. Well, 1 minute blocks more is that it's basically not mutually exclusive with anything. Right. Like all those things that we talked about before, not one of those things would clash with 1 minute blocks of those existing proposals. And I would be more convinced by the 1 minute block skeptics if they were like, A, we have a really good proposal to make ZeroConf a lot better, and B, it clashes with 1 minute blocks somehow. But there's no such thing as that. Nobody has either done the work on such a proposal or B, demonstrated that 1 minute blocks would be bad for it. It's usually the opposite, which is certainly the case with Sunlight, that the faster blocks actually helps it. You get more, it's actually better with 1 minute blocks, which makes sense because they're attacking the same problem. So if they mesh, then they multiply on each other, which is you get Sunlight, like a pre-conf basically, or an escalating pre-conf, and then the 1 minute conf like locks it in. And I still can't really understand why a lot of people can't understand the idea. You say, okay, we're going to do 1 minute blocks. And they say, okay, well, 10 1 minute blocks is just the same as 1 10 minute block. You're like, yes, but 2 1 minute blocks is like pretty good, you know? One 1 minute block can be maybe more easily reorged, But 2 1-minute blocks after 2 minutes still means you have 8 minutes where you're more confident than you were before. Or 3 1-minute blocks, 4 1-minute blocks. Like, you get more confidence faster. I don't understand why people can't really grok that a lot of the time.
Did we ever remove the checkpointing either?
No.
So okay, 6 confirmations, which we'll get to in less than 10 minutes, less than 1 block.
But I think that the checkpoint would be moved from 10 blocks to 100 blocks. That's in the proposal. Because Bitcoin Cash Borders very smartly does not want, as far as I know, to have any complaining about this. We're not stealthily trying to change anything like that. Like, the difficulty algorithm adjusts the exact same. Abla adjusts the exact same. The checkpoint is the exact same. Like, the time locks are the exact same. Like, everything is just the exact same, adjusted proportionally where necessary to maintain that. But it's still better because 10 1-minute blocks, you have more intervals in that point where it's working. And also, an actual block is harder to reorg. It just is. 10 1-minute blocks is harder to reorg than one 10-minute block, because each of those updates around the network gets everyone on the same tip, right? It's just the same thing as Sunlight, just with the block times rather than the zero conf, like, proof of work. It's just cumulative proof of work. That's all everything is, cumulative proof of work,
I don't mean to derail too much, but like, I feel like we don't talk about the checkpointing thing that much anymore. And I remember when it was implemented, it was kind of a spicy move. What do you think of checkpoints? Do you think it was good? Do you think it doesn't matter? Like,
I think it's great. I think it's a super good thing. I'm completely in favor of it, because what most people don't understand, because you have these people who are now mostly still in BTC who have this like purist approach of, with the trillions of trillions of hashes and whatever, right back to the Genesis block. Like, this is the most secure that you can ever be, with your entire Genesis, your node synced from the block from Genesis up to now with the most hash rate. Like, yeah, my transaction is secure. And it's kind of like, well, yes, that's true, but also, do you live in the real world? Because like everything in the real world, there's a point of diminishing returns on nines, like 90, if you're 99%, that's pretty good. Okay, I wouldn't want to bet my whole finances on 99% willy-nilly, but 99.9%, 99.999%, 99.99999%, like, there's a point at just which it gets ridiculous. And in the real world, people are not going to reverse a significant amount of commerce. It's simply not going to happen. If there was aliens or a new SHA-256 hashing strat or something that meant somebody just popped out of nowhere and was like, hey guys, we've got this 6-month BTC reorg, nobody would accept it as legitimate. Not even these. Yeah, that's right. But nobody would accept it as legitimate. Not even the guys who are like, no, it's back to Genesis, my node. Like, get over yourself. Like, all their transactions from the last 6 months, but they're probably not making, because they don't even really make transactions. But anybody who was actually doing anything on the chain would immediately be like, this is 6 months old. Clearly the world has moved on. 3 months, people would be like, this is too old. 1 month, people would be like, this is too old. Like, 2 weeks is already one difficulty adjustment. That's already an enormous amount of the state of the world and of the UTXO set has shifted so much in that time. And also everyone has clearly converged on, this is the real chain tip. So to me, like, that moment happens, especially in the modern world, like within hours, surely. After, like, what is the time limit at which you could be like, well, this kind of reorg, like 6 hours, maybe. A whole day, ooh, it's getting tricky. 3 days, I think the world's like, we've moved on. Like, I don't know what these blocks are or what the hell you're doing, but like, too bad, so sad. Like, we're not following that chain tip. Like Coinbase, imagine Coinbase, Binance, everyone being like, oh, sorry, your last 3 days of activity. How much activity do they do every day? It's way more than the on-chain activity, right?
Yeah.
Is like they would not be like, well, we're going to reverse all your transactions. No way.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me, checkpoints has always been a little bit iffy because like, but you know, the way that you're describing it, I do feel like is correct. And I'm curious if it was like maybe an oversight or if it was just like, oh, well, we don't need to make a new rule because the incentives work out in such a way that the, you know, likelihood of this ever happening is so low. Because like, you know, lasting chain forks wasn't predicted. Yeah, something to think about anyway.
Yeah, Jingle Bob says in the comments, never been a 10 block reorg that wasn't organized through back channels. Any block reorg greater than 9 is an attack. And I think, yeah, that basically summarizes it. Like, it's not like any of the miners would accidentally get a majority of the hash rate doing 10 blocks that had all been secretly mined. Like at that point, you're just like, it's obvious it's an attack. Like it is an attack. That was the whole point of the sunlight talk, which just made perfect sense, which was, okay, it's not as simple as it's 10 blocks versus 10 blocks. If there's 10 blocks and we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 roll out piece by piece, and we've seen them, everyone's seen them, we've seen that everyone's seen them, everyone knows that this is where we're going, and then suddenly somebody pops out of nowhere. Okay, strictly by the laws of, you know, blockchain accumulated weight, this other one might be equivalent or bigger. But in the real world, because all Bitcoin is humans, not even nodes, it's got nothing to do with nodes in a way, is humans converging on, this is our 21 million coins over and over and over and over every second of every day. And then the actual infrastructure, all the mining, all the nodes, all that stuff is just like to make the bookkeeping a little more convenient. But and then that's why when you have a chain split, the whole BCH community was like, okay, these other 21 million, they're a hoax. Like this is the real coins, and the opposite for the BTC guys. And then as time goes on, it just becomes more and more like that. You just live in the reality with the people that you agree to be in it with. But it's just, that's what it is. It's just, it's nothing to do with the nodes or the mining. It's, do the people recognize it as valid? And I said that in the Telegram chat as well. Like I was talking about that. The original form of money was just a ledger in people's minds of, in a tribe of 50 people, this guy killed a massive deer and we all ate for a week. So we're all, you know, when he needs something, we're going to help him out. And that works with 50 people. But then past a certain scale, you're kind of like, okay, we're going to need to write some of this down. And that's how you get a ledger. And then now we've just abstracted that ledger into cyberspace, you know, and just because it's more convenient at planetary scale.
All right. That all makes sense. Definitely, it's something, especially with the sunlight stuff being more and more. I want to revisit the checkpoint thing. I want to be, yeah, because I feel like that's the last piece that I'm like, yeah, I don't know about this.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm personally bullish on having 1 minute blocks come to consensus in November and lock in, which then would mean we've got a sick upgrade coming the year after, and now our, what do you call it? Our reach, our clout is high enough that people are going to know about that the day that it locks in. Like Layla, people, you know, like every subsequent upgrade, the industry knows, or people who are paying attention, there's more and more people paying attention. So if it's like BCH has got 1 minute blocks coming, if we know in November, everyone will know in November. And then that will be then hype for 6 months. And then of course, as always, by the time it rolls around, it's just like, yeah, duh. Like that's the same thing. Like if we tried to unroll 6 months of blocks, it's the same as if you showed up to Bliss and we're like, guys, we got to stop the Layla upgrade. I disagree. Everyone would be like, what are you talking about? Like, not like this has been baked. The pie has been baked for 6 months. So it's just the same concept.
Okay.
But then anyway, that's what I'm saying. Because then if we had locks in November, goes live next year, it's a banger update. Also, everybody is discussing sunlight for the year after to really like hammer the nail home on ZeroConf, and you know whatever else is being discussed as an upgrade that has come up in the meantime. And then 2028, the upgrade is sunlight plus you know, some changes to the script system or like whatever. Who knows what kind of stuff we'll have come up with by then. That just sounds to me like such a strong roadmap. So, you know, I'm in favor of it. Okay, one other thing I wanted to touch on with BLISS very quickly is every single year we have this discussion where people are like, should we relocate the next year? Should we do Ljubljana again? Should we go somewhere else? And it's just always just this tough tension because every single year we get a bunch of people who say, guys, I would love if you relocated it onto a transport hub that made it easier for me to get to and cheaper for me to get to, and also maybe a change of scene. You know, we can explore like a different city. I've been to Ljubljana a couple of times now, you know, that kind of thing. And the other problem that people seem to have, which is a bit more resolvable, I think, is being like, oh, the local adoption isn't quite there to make the whole conference as compelling. Where in that first year, everyone loved that. And then the second and third year, you know, the situation wasn't so good. But I feel like maybe if we can get some more local adoption going, even just a couple, like 1 or 2 restaurants that everyone can go to or something like that, that would make a big difference. And then on the other hand, we also have a bunch of people who say like, I love it here. Like, let's not change it. It's working. It's good. It's become the BLISS staple. Everyone loves the venue. Everyone loves the food. We don't have it. Like the staff are all great. The rooms are great. We basically don't have a problem. They're very accommodating. Like, don't change a winning team. Do you have a view on that?
My biggest thing is I would like it to be somewhere where I can pay for the hotel in BCH, because the hotel is my biggest expense. And like I'm not all in, but I'm too in BCH. So like to do this, I have to now sell coins, which I don't ever want to do. Like I'd rather just go to the hotel, use it as the money that I purchased it to use it as, and be done with it. Yeah, 'cause especially like with this bank run stuff, like I'm every other week buying these coins and then get home and it's like, well, here you go, guys. Here's all that I just took from your exchange. Like,
no, and I think that's huge. I think honestly, I think that is really huge. And of course, if anybody wanted to pay with the hotel, like you could come and talk to me. I said that a couple of times. Maybe I didn't emphasize it as much as I should have, but yeah, like. Yeah, it's just such a like that's the one sticking point with the actual venue itself. Like they've been great in so many ways, and that's the one thing where we just can't get any traction with them. So it might just be fix this, or like we're not going to be there next year. I mean, I certainly felt this third year they were even more accommodating than they ever have been before, because they can see we're bringing back a ton of business year after year after year, and like that's what it is. We're spending a lot of money at the venue.
Yeah, they were super nice too. As soon as I walked in, he's like, "Oh, it's nice to see you again this year." Like, very strange. I assumed like they just have so many people come and go, they wouldn't remember me being there for, you know, a week. But yeah, super nice staff, very accommodating venue.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it. Obviously, yeah. Remains to be seen. I still need to talk to Jonathan and review the event. Ryan and I, you know, we'll get together and we'll see. And we're not going to lock anything in, you know, well ahead of time anyway. But that's kind of the perpetual debate that we always have. You know, I would say, yeah, probably on average, if I had to guess, Jonathan and I are more in favor of let's just keep doing what's already working. Because the people who say let's do it somewhere else, I think they don't really know what they're asking for in terms of if we go somewhere else, then the event will kind of get set back in a certain way, because suddenly it'll be a new venue, there'll be new staff, there'll be a new audio system, there'll be new streaming, new setup, like so much stuff that we've now got a system for and that is working well. We would have to go back to square one on. And if we do a good job, that wouldn't be as noticeable from the outside, but inevitably it means we miss out. Like we could have done this XY extra things that we didn't do, because it's just like back to square one on all the basics. And at a certain point, the event will be so big that we will have to relocate probably. So there is going to be a point at which a relocation becomes a very serious concern. But you know, for this year, it was fine. If we grew again, another 40%, 100, 110 people next year, would still be fine. After that, who knows? Maybe we're doing multi-track, maybe we're doing multiple rooms. I don't know. But then after that, like it's not the type of venue that can have more than like 300 or 400 people, but that's a long way down the road, right?
Yeah, multi-track sounds like more of a nightmare in my mind than changing a venue. Like, at least for the streaming side of things, that just means we need twice as many hands. Like,
yeah,
and that's crazy.
Well, we wouldn't necessarily have to stream both of them. We could stream one and have a side one that we either just recorded or that wasn't recorded, or it would maybe be like the stage and the talks versus like a hackathon area for people that were working on projects, or there's a lot of different ways we could do it, but just not like we just literally are overgrowing the whole size of the thing. Like Francisco de la Vedova says, a place where you can go to the conference and only use BCH without needing to sell to fiat would be excellent. And that's exactly it. That we had that the first year, everyone loved it. The second year we got rugged. The third year we just did not have time to fight that battle. But maybe for next year we can. I feel like if we fix that, people can get over the sort of transport and logistics part of it. Like that seems to be less of a complaint now that it's established than the local adoption. That's just my take.
The only issue I think I have with the transport thing is that airport in Ljubljana every year gives me shit about bag weight, and it's like, like, of course I've got heavy bags. It's filled with electronics. Like,
yeah.
What do you mean? Like 8 kilograms ain't shit.
Yeah, I personally had no problems at the airport, but that's why I outsource it to you. So
yeah, I gotta figure out. Also, if anyone's listening that has any tips, like mailing stuff, like first off, I should get insurance on my gear, but I think it's at a point where I should just ship it out because it's such a hassle to bring on the airlines.
Well, yes, but one thing I'll caution you on there, and that's what we did this year with the merch. But then I had to like mess around a bunch with these forms with the importing into the EU customs and like all that, and we had to pay for that and blah 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 blah. So like that is a good option, and that's something, again, like this is the kind of thing that if we relocated somewhere else, suddenly we would be back to square one on dealing with like the logistics of the venue and how do we prep everything and the room setup, like all this stuff. So yeah, the event gets better year on year, largely because we don't change the stuff that's already working. So if anybody who's kind of like, please relocate, just maybe keep that in mind. All right. Okay, so that's enough about BLISS. Now, as a sort of follow-on to that, soon after that, basically, Vlad Kostia has done an 8-hour marathon stream with a bunch of BCHs, of which there was also much excited discussion about BLISS. The whole thing was super great, so everybody should go and listen to the entire thing, basically. But there is the two best bits, in my opinion, were the start, where Vlad kind of says, BCH has been associated with Roger Ver and Jihan and Amori, and that's kind of like what people think of when they think of Bitcoin Cash. Like, who are you guys? Like, who? They're not on this call, but I'm talking apparently to the BCH community. Like, who are you? And I thought that was really good because I've said before, I feel like it's about 3 years just seems to be the delay between something changing in crypto and sort of the broader world becoming aware of like it's now 2026 and everybody understands cash tokens, right? There's maybe still some people who like are a bit unclear about ABLA. And then, Velma and Layla, like there's lots of people would be like, I didn't know that was happening or whatever. The same way I would expect that I'm 3 years out of date on what's happening in Monero. Like probably they're working on something amazing and I just don't pay attention. So I'm 2 to 3 years behind. That's how I feel it is with that. Like this is the BCH community now. Did you get that vibe?
Yeah. I mean, I think it just like if we could get a stat of like, the most active Telegram users, I feel like that is the BCH community at the moment. Maybe not most active, but like I feel like I see all of these guys actively talking about BCH. You know who I don't see talking about BCH? Roger Marie or G.
Yeah.
And haven't in quite some time. It's like you just need to do like a hashtag search, right? Like, of
But it
course,
just takes time. It just takes time for people to change their associate. This is what I'm saying. It's like everybody else is outside the bubble. They're not in all these Telegram groups. They just hear that one thing, BCH, whatever. And that's okay. Firstly, I got to give a quick apology to Jerry, his name I did not put on the slide. He's literally even in the screenshot, but I was rushing through it at the end. I think I got everyone else. Maybe he was the only one that I forgot. Maybe there's somebody else who checked into the stream that I forgot. But sorry, Jerry. You should be on the list. My apologies. But in any case, like, yeah, it just takes time for people to be like, oh, these are the new faces. These are the people who are involved day to day. Like, this is where the fresh ideas are coming from. This is what these new things are being built or whatever, you know?
I like the phenomenal big blockers title.
That's right. That was a very very promising title. And so yeah, thank you to Vlad for hosting it. Like, seemed like he also really enjoyed it and had a really good time. So I've got a little clip here from right at the end, which kind of summarized some of his thoughts, which I found quite interesting.
Dinner, guys. Thanks again.
Before you go, let me just say something because it's important. So I want to say that you made all of these mentions about the community getting better, and I also think that the fundamentals are more interesting, because in the beginning, Bitcoin Cash was just like Bitcoin with 8 megabyte blocks, so it wasn't that interesting, to be honest. It wasn't that much of a leap. Bitcoin did 4 megabytes with SegWit, and then you guys did 16, 32. Anyway, I got a message just now from Robin Linus. He's the creator of BitVM, and he's also a PhD student at Stanford. And he said, tell the BCH guys that I, the officially crowned king of Bitcoin script wizards, am fucking jealous of all their neat code upcodes and wish we had them too.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Join us. BCH is for everyone. Come join us. BCH is for everyone.
A lot of these opcodes came from Jason Drazer, who's got a lot of insight into the VM. So thanks to him.
Yeah, if you can get him on a pod, my God, you want to go deep down the rabbit hole. He's a absolute.
There you go. So I think that basically, like, summary. I love Steve saying Bitcoin Cash is for everyone, waving his hands around like that. Come get involved if you want to be, and that's it, right? The change in the community is just so visible from the outside when we get this kind of exposure, you know, when somebody will take the time to actually properly engage with it. And hopefully now, thankfully, I mean, it might become an ironic meme in retrospect, but hopefully now I don't have to anything but BCH Vlad all the time. So there you go. Cyberbullying does work. It just takes a long time. But in any case, I'm so glad that he put that together, engaged with it. And shout out to Steve, I think, who was also heavily involved in organizing it. And Callan, who was on for almost all the stream as well.
Didn't this come up from Steve and Callisti going up to Vlad in person at a conference? And like, because we have that anything but BCH clip, right? Yeah. Was that the start of this?
I think so, yeah.
Beautiful.
So there you have it.
Take that cyberbullying, bully someone at a conference, and then get on their show.
Well, but I don't, in a way, I don't blame him for that, in the sense that, like, okay, we're talking shit and we come up with these memes and whatever. But it's like, if he's never met anybody in person, then it just kind of seems like, well, maybe this is some weird online group of trolls, or like, it's hard to know if any of it's actually real or anything. I mean, of course, taking a dig into it, you would pretty quickly find that there was more than enough evidence that it was real.
It's not, but like, that's not got the funds for astroturfing.
Yeah, exactly. But it still doesn't matter. Like, it's not as real. It's the same as what you said about it's so good to meet all these people at BLISS, where then you're kind of like, oh, this is all the people that I'm talking to. This is the people that I'm arguing on. This is the person that I was talking about collaborating with, or whatever. You know, just having a mental model in your mind of this physical person makes just a ton of difference. And that was clearly another case of that happening. So, you know, just a shout out to everybody, especially Jerry, who was on that stream. You all did a great job. I think it represented BCH very well. Vlad has said that it got a ton of positive feedback, which I'm also not surprised about. But it's just, for many people, yeah, again, like that's just going to do so much good to reset their perception or their mind of these stupid Bcasher Roger, like whatever, that either they remember from 8 years ago, 10 years ago, or that they've never looked into at all, and they just heard word on the grapevine that that's what it was about and thought, okay, yep, that's probably what it was about, you know?
Yeah. Shout out to Jingle Bob too. I saw he was active in Vlad's stream chat.
Yeah. I think, there was a few people chatting away in there. That's excellent. Now, Vlad challenged me afterwards to do an 8-hour marathon stream with some BTC guys, a challenge that I accepted and then tagged a bunch of people I would like to talk to sort of test the waters. Our response from that was not that great. Largely radio silence. And Moonsettler and Paul wrote back, Paul Storts wrote back and said, I mean, sounds like we'd probably just rehash a lot of what's already been said already. So we didn't get any strong bites initially. But regardless, I will put together something. I have spoken to Vlad directly about it. I don't know that we'll do an 8-hour marathon stream. Like, that's kind of his thing. I don't know that this show is really the same vibe. But regardless, I do hope that we'll be able to put together something with at least a couple of guests to get maybe some different takes and some different insight into where they're at. I mean, honestly, it was quite impressive that Vlad did do that whole stream with it was just him and like all the BCHs, you know. He didn't even have one quote unquote like ally, but then it's just so telling that didn't matter, of course, because everybody was, of course, just friendly and just joking around with him and just telling him exactly what we've been working on, basically, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad we've shed the... I did see there was a little bit of talk in the couple hours that I watched of like, oh, but is it the real Bitcoin? But I'm glad that we've shed that argument just being the only thing that people go on about.
And I really liked that point that he said in the clip there about BCH being different. And I think that's really important for the BCH community to understand, because naively, you might think a BTC, somebody who likes BTC, somebody who's invested in it, somebody who's in that ecosystem, you might think the more something was like BTC, the more interested they would be in it. They already like that. This is similar. Great. But it's actually the opposite, which is the more similar it is to something they already like, the less interested they're going to be in it, because they're like, well, we've already got BTC for that. Like, your minor variant or whatever just doesn't sound that great. Like, it's going to take me time and energy and effort and whatever to research or get involved in something else. If I want to do that, it's got to have an element that it's similar, right? You can say, oh, you know, it's still the Genesis block, it's still Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, the same 21 million, proof of work, you know, they already understand all those things, so you don't have to sell them on that. And that helps, because if you say, oh, I have, you know, coin number 1000, they might be like, okay, this is just too far outside. But setting that aside, it really is the things that make it different that make BCH more interesting. And so that's just another reason that I'm bullish on upgrades and things that we innovate ourselves. And it could be 1 minute blocks and sunlight. It could be culture. You know, like he had a joke with Fiendish about having his green sunglasses and the history with like the laser eyes. That's a good part of it. Whether, you know, we have slightly different wallets or we have a different focus of what the ecosystem's working on, the VM upgrades, the DeFi stuff. Like if we have quantum solutions rolling out that BTC doesn't, like all these different things, the more different BTC and BCH, even the fact that we've rebranded everything to green, you know, and it didn't stay stuck on that orange with the cash bill that was kind of more same, like everybody understands that concept, right? That differentiation is better, especially for BCH, because we do have to forge our own narrative, right?
Yeah, I think that Callan kind of made a good point too, where it was like, you know, when we split, it was a lot of like, you know, rebels, ragtag, rapscallion kind of thing. And at some point, you know, you can be like, no, we don't want this thing all you want, but you've got to build something. And we did a good job. Pat yourselves on the back.
Well, that's right. And now we have done a good job. And I think that's coming across in terms of it takes a while for those things to compound. That's what it is. It takes a while to get everybody reoriented on the same page. Of course, there's much fallout and problems in that. B, then you have to actually make something good. And then C, you need to wait even years longer with relentless promotion before other people start paying attention and like, is this even worth looking at? And there you go. So we're now kind of getting to that point. And it ties into what we said before about the attacks. Like the more visibility and reach we get, that's good. That's what we're trying to do. That's the whole point. But it also is going to come with more negative attention as well. It will be proportionally less. So we're going to get more positive attention than we get more negative attention. But still, it's just something to be aware of. And it just makes it also, as we're on a bigger and bigger stage, the importance of not screwing up also becomes bigger. Like if we have another disaster somehow, then that would be an easy thing for all the critics to jump on. Like just as they were getting to the point of being like, well, maybe there's something to this. If there's a problem, then it'll be, oh, I knew it. I knew it the whole time. Like, of course, they were just idiotic scammers or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, everybody should just be kind of aware of that. Okay, speaking of that, let's get on to our check-in on our poor, not quite friend, Bitcoin mechanic in his struggles over in BTC land. So for anybody who doesn't know, last year we made an episode almost exactly 1 year ago, a little over a year ago in May. We made an episode called 151 Bitcoin Mechanic and the Architects of Spam. And that was already kind of a part 2 to an episode we made a year before that called, what was it called? Narrative Collapse and something, a clip review, something like that. Episode 119, which we then clipped out a lot of for the hoax video, where we went through all the hijacking, the hoax, how the BTC community was starting to realize it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a really good starting point if you actually want to dive deep into all this. If you're new to the show, you can go back and listen to episode 119, skip to 45 minutes in, and then listen to the rest of the show, and then listen to episode 151 and all the breakdown we did of that there. But it's 1 year later, and he has been struggling away in order to try and fight spam and realign Bitcoin to the way it should have been. So, firstly, a little bit of credit to us, because of course nobody else is going to give it to us, that we hit 100%. I didn't even think we'd get 100%, but we literally got every single prediction from that show right. The mining pushback, the increased censorship, interference by Blockstream, the creation of Potemkin clients, Adam Back, Michael Saylor, and Peter Todd jumping in the various different ways, the stalling conferences that they held, getting up to 25% of the node max, which then has since like collapsed a little bit. Even some more of those other things that we said, like everything that was on those slides, and I documented all of it on Twitter, have the proof, the receipts for every single thing, hit 100% of them. So I'm quite proud of that, because it just goes to like the only proof is time, right? Truth doesn't rust. So in that sense, we got it all right, and people going back to listen to it can be like, "Oh shit, like really?" Because it gets out of time, right? If you listen to it now, you're like, "Oh yeah, duh, obviously that's what happened." But at the time we said it, none of this had happened. Like this was all, forecasting. But accurate forecasting is a sign that you have an accurate mental model, right? So anyway, Bitcoin Mechanic has been struggling through this long series of problems that we predicted, and he has since plowed through one by one, like in a hurdles race, like those clips where like everyone's doing the hurdle race and one guy just like gets like, fuck it, I'll just run through them all. That's kind of what he's been up to. and he literally got banned off our Bitcoin today or yesterday, I think. And he put out a video whinging about it today. So we have a short clip here in 2 little segments, part 1 and part 2, to hear where he's kind of at after this year of working away on building consensus for a BTC upgrade. Let's see what he has to say.
I didn't even think they would delete the post, to be honest. But they did, and they banned my whole account from the subreddit. So that's pretty funny. It's annoying because I get it. Reddit's always been, that is Reddit for a start. But there isn't really much conversation possible about this stuff. The mailing list is stupid. Everything that goes on GitHub gets deleted by, the spam bot, and they just leave it, even if it's obviously a human interacting or submitting stuff. I'm not going to delve in Bitcoin because it's a tiny little echo chamber. Bitcoin talk is useless. No one uses it. There are a lot of venues here where you can have potential conversation, but nothing ever happens there. Reddit is the potential for actual wider conversation, which is presumably why it's so locked down. Twitter is great for that too, but none of the people on the other side use Twitter. Actually, there are people against Bit.10 on Twitter, but there's a lot of mutual blocking there, unfortunately. But none of the core devs the people that are respected that are against Bit.10 are basically just some core devs. No.
All right, so that's the first part, and of course, as we predicted and as we explained, just the control grid has got him. All of this censorship, all of this control of the narrative, like he is really having a tough time finding, wait a second, I am like a Bitcoin unofficial influencer and I can barely get the word out to anyone to discuss any of the important stuff going on in Bitcoin because it's all censored and controlled, which is exactly like, it's one of those things, like you feel like you have free speech until you want to say something that the powerful people don't want to hear. Then suddenly you find out maybe I don't have that much free speech, right? I don't know, but this is exactly it, right? This is the hijacking made manifest.
Yeah, I don't. We told you.
Well, that's right. I mean, the whole thing is just like we've told him like so many times, and it's kind of like, but people have to learn. They have to make their own mistakes. It's like he clearly wouldn't listen. And anyway, that's all right. Let's hear this second part, which is on a kind of related topic.
That's just how it works. So I was way too generous with that argument at the beginning, and I've completely lost patience with it now. It's frivolous obstructionism, and none of these people will sit down at the table and actually discuss the thing properly. Really, it's just all about control, as usual, and governance and snobbery and disdain for actual Bitcoin users and a desire to coordinate things in a centralized fashion, like they're doing with the great consensus cleanup, where they're like, oh, look, a mining pool is signaling activation for this. That's how it looks when you've got actual consensus. That's a quote from Merch. So one mining pool is saying we're going to activate a soft fork that there isn't a node in the world actually supporting. That's decentralization, is it? That's grassroots support. However, 10,000 BIP110 nodes run by clearly demonstrably real people that you can meet and talk to at any Bitcoin event around the world, that's just Sybil attacking. That's just that's an astroturfed movement, right? This is utterly delusional. They just don't. It's just ivory tower elitism, and believe me, I come from a background where this stuff is rampant, and it makes me sick now. It's just hatred of the deplorables, right? And it couldn't be a better example of.
So there you go. And I feel like, again, this is literally just he's reliving the big blocker experience just to the nth degree, where this is exactly what happened to the big blockers. They were trying to make some noise. They had an organic community, clearly with real people, clearly with real, points to be made, clearly showing up at conferences, clearly wanting to discuss what was happening in Bitcoin and not to be just sidelined off. But that's what happened. We got completely sidelined eventually because we didn't have our hands on the levers of power, as it turned out in the end, and the real decision making was being done by a small clique that had control of exactly what was happening, who then said, oh, well, there's gaslighting about consensus, going in circles, and then ignoring all of the real people that were a significant part of the community. And so for him, I don't know at what point he's going to really put it together that this is what our experience was like. And to be fair, in the last year, he has had a bit of a change of heart where he started to say, like, okay, look, the Bitcoin Cash community and the big blockers, like, you were a bit swept aside, and maybe I didn't really understand at the time how you were feeling about that, and we shouldn't have dismissed you, and so forth. So well done to him on starting to come to that point of view, and that's been really nice. And then he started to, but he still, funnily enough, thinks that there's some salvaging the situation with the people that he can't make any inroads with. And he still kind of is trying to be like, I'm discussing in good faith. Like, I do want to reach out to someone, and the truth will shine if I can get in front of an audience and we can discuss it. And clearly it is to those grassroots people that are coming to talk to him at conferences, that are responding to his messages and so forth. But it just doesn't break through the like steel walls built around Bitcoin Core, right? I feel like that's just, it's what we said in the episode a year ago. Like, you cannot deal with a malicious person until you understand that they are malicious. If you don't understand that, no amount of, oh, let's go back, like a drug addict or anything, like going back for that one more time, one more chance, this time I'll be able to get through to them, etc. It's like, you're not dealing with a situation where that will ever work. And you just, as painful as it might be because of your emotional attachment to, that argument or the people that you were dealing with or whatever, you just have to get to the point of being like, okay, we're under attack and this is malicious, which he now is most of the way there too. But that hasn't quite clicked that like it was always malicious. Like, from the start until now, there was no point at which it wasn't malicious. I was just naively going along with it,
When you say most of the way there, what's the last piece?
Well, it's sort of not a direct piece. Well, the last piece is probably going to be that his attempt to have their fork and split off and everything goes like super badly, and then he's just like, holy crap. And he'll come to that in the next clip that we have. He sort of goes into that a little bit. But really what he needs to get to is he's kind of realized, wait, the Bitcoin Cash people were unfairly dismissed, and B, they were actually more right than I realized about some of the shenanigans that were going on. He's got both of those things. But now his argument is, yeah, but big blocks is still a bad idea. So he needs to have like C, like step 3 is, wait, they were right about the social stuff because I was being lied to about that by sort of malicious people. What about the technical stuff? Like, he still believes, even though all of his information about the technical side, small blocks, etc., like, well, not all of it. Some of it comes from him running his own nodes and working on his own stuff, right? So he does have that personal touch point, which confirms it. But also all the other stuff about the research that he's read and we need to have small blocks and all this, SegWit and Taproot are great ideas. Now he kind of thinks, wait, they were bad ideas, but he hasn't really realized. But the BCH community knew that well in advance. Same as with the predictions. Like, it's not just that they stumbled over and suddenly, in hindsight, were right. Like, they made the right decision back then because they had that information. So I think he needs to realize, if they were right about the social stuff, could they also be right about the technical stuff? And actually go back and do the reading about the different hoaxes that are like, the nodes are a huge factor in governance, which is kind of somewhat true, but not really. the miners kind of matter a lot more and they can be politically influenced, which is what he's struggling with right now. IBD, like he's so stressed about IBD, but it's like, look, if you just develop UTXO commitments, which were known in 2012, that mostly solves the problem. That's where I'd like him to get to, but it's still going to take. It's going to be pretty earth-shattering to be like, wait, they weren't right. How much time has it taken for him to get to the point of, wait, the big blockers were onto it with the social heuristics, and then to also admit, wait, they also knew the correct like technical ideas the whole time. That's a pretty big leap,
And what kind of timeline do you think it'll take?
Well, that's it. We're going to see. So from here, the struggle to implement BIP 110, which they initially proposed, like, it's an emergency. We've got to stop CSAM and everything. We've got 3 months and then we're just going to roll it out. And then after their panic sort of subsided and they got thoroughly mocked for that, they realized, okay, this is going to take a little bit longer. So now they've planned it for for August and September. It's supposed to go live in September. So we actually have here the graphs of the BIP 110 signaling. This is like how it's actually going, which is that in 12 signaling periods, so 12 adjustments of 2,000 plus blocks, which comes out to 24,000 blocks. They've managed to get 13 blocks out of those 24,000, roughly. They got 7 in the last signaling period, which was an all-time high because previously they'd only got 3, but it's still like a couple of tiny little miners have signaled, and they've also got onto this idea of renting hash as like plebs to try and bolster up the blocks, which is a good idea, but ultimately, how much money can they throw into that furnace before everybody's like, we're just throwing away, like, we're not getting paid for this? Ideologically, you can only go so far with that route. So really, it's a stretch, and they're running out of time because they've got June, 2 difficulty periods in June, 2 in July, and then August is kind of like when crunch time hits, and then mandatory signaling is going to start in the middle of, like, I think it's the 7th or 8th of August maybe is the predicted date that it will be. That's then mandatory signaling. At that point, all of their nodes are going to get dumped off the network. And his theory is, no, the game theory is that as this deadline approaches, everyone is going to fall under the sway of the nodes, which in his mind is what happened in UASF, right? Happened in SegWit, when it's the opposite. That was his story of what happened, but really it was like, that was secondary to the hijackers told the miners, and the big blockers got censored, and then that's how it happened. And then the UASF kind of snuck in via that. But that's not happening again this time. In fact, this time he's on the other side against the hijackers. So we'll see. I mean, of course, I don't know the future, despite having a 100% success rate on prediction from the last year. I definitely don't know the future. So it could be that maybe the miners all capitulate in this big flood over the next few months. And the quote unquote game theory that he's relying on so heavily, that a soft fork, which creates wipeout risk for the non-fork, the legacy chain, will carry the day as everybody scrambles to avoid that risk. But the reality is, like, it's just, time is just going to pass, and it's not going to happen. The mandatory signaling period is going to come. All their nodes are going to get dumped off the network as they refuse to be a part of these new non-compliant blocks or whatever. And then that's it. So I don't think they're even going to get to one single actual block that they mine as an independent chain, right?
Yeah.
You don't have any greater faith in them that they can scrap something together and make it happen.
No.
Yeah.
Not for anything of any value anyway. Like, I think it would be more likely that there's a rally that doesn't quite work, and then there's some random guy who like 2 weeks later is like, I got a block. But at that point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's dead by then. And he has, I mean, because he has this story to himself, if you listen to his interviews and so forth, where he's talking about like, oh, if let's say 60% of the hash rate, like they're at 0.3% right now. Okay. But let's say, okay, there's this big game theory thing that happens. And then we're at 60%, and then we're at 40%, and the other chain is at 60%. Well, if there's a lucky surge of blocks on the 40%, then it will wipe out the 60%. So they will capitulate, and like that's how we'll win, right? And that kind of risk, quote unquote, like that everyone's going to be like panicked about that risk. But that's not really like true at all. It's exactly what we saw in the BSV split in the hash war, where it's like once you start losing, it's very demoralizing for your side who are like, oh crap, we're losing. Like maybe we were wrong about this and we need to rethink. Like we've come this far. Oh, maybe we need to stop digging like a deeper hole. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is, if you are the minority chain, you just can't sustain it for very long at all, because it's brutally punishing to be a minority chain in that situation, because you have to keep paying the miners, but their block rewards are going to be worth virtually nothing. Like the market is not going to be buying those coins. And so you're just throwing money into a furnace, like burning it literally every second as you try and do this, which is exactly what Craig and Calvin tried to do. And they had like, God knows how many, probably tens of millions of dollars that the mechanic just does not have that. And so this idea that, well, we could be the 40% minority that just gets a lucky break. It's like, that's relevant in the first hour or two, if you can maintain it. But once the other chain has the majority and is 6 to 10 blocks ahead, it's over. You're cooked. Like, and it just seems, well, the mandatory signaling is going to tip them off to not even try this. But mate, like he can't even reason through the idea that that's what it would take, basically. So I've also got here the SegWit signaling. So this is just a good comparison that can show you, like he keeps giving this whole, the UASF, like it all worked out, a minority fork that nobody believed in worked out. But you can just kind of look at the blocks here. So from SegWit at the same time, like it started out at 20% support. And then as the signaling periods went on, like by now, he should be in the 30% range, and then kind of get a critical mass tip over sort of at the end. But not only have they not had 20% the entire time, their all-time high of hash rate signaling is 0.3%. So they're just not. And he's been saying like, well, clearly we're winning because the core side have been too arrogant to prepare a URSF to defend themselves against this situation of getting wiped out. But the thing is, they're one step ahead. They're so unconcerned about this that they haven't even bothered, because they know if they get it ready, he'll say, look, see, they're worried. Like like they know not to give him that PR win and just not bother and just let it die in a catastrophe. I don't know.
Do you think they learned from the BCH split and they were like, well, Roger got a bunch of, not Roger, but the backdoor deals did a really good job in involving inviting any debate is a mistake.
I just think they're not worried. I just think, I mean, if he had, like, if this chart, if this BIP 110 chart looked like the SegWit chart, then I feel like we'd see a, let's get a URSF ready. Let's make sure these scammers like fork themselves off and it's not the real Bitcoin and blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, and we'd be seeing it all being discussed on Twitter and Reddit, but it's basically like they've just isolated themselves off into their echo chamber and they can't break through the censorship, which was the whole point, of course. And like when there was Op Next, which was, you know, a month and a half ago, that would have been a topic there if they were worried. They would have been like, oh, what to do about these filter guys? Like, what about BIP110? It was not on the agenda. It was not mentioned. Everyone was instead talking about quantum. All the big money, like miners, were talking about, yeah, quantum and institutional money and AI that everyone's really interested in. That, I mean, that's the sad thing that he has to process, is that even if he has got, let's say, 10 or 15% of the network in terms of the actual physical people and maybe the nodes on his side, A, that's a minority. That's not even close to a majority. And B, that 10% doesn't matter if he's got the 10% of like riled up plebs versus 0% or 1% of the miners and the institutions and the dev cloud, the rest of the ecosystem. That's it, really. Anyway, we've got one more clip from him, I think, right? It should do. Did I not put it on the slide?
4 Bitcoins.
No. It's what Bitcoin did. Did I not copy it onto the slides? I might have to send it to you. Oh, man. Let me just quickly grab that clip. I was looking at it before. Mechanic. I'll send you the link right here. Okay. Here we go. And I'll get you the timestamp here. Okay. Here we go. All right. So thankfully, the one question that I wanted to ask him was actually asked to him by Danny on what Bitcoin did, which is, what are you going to do if it turns out you got hoaxed and you get split off onto your own chain, or it doesn't really make it that far? Like, what is going to be the outcome from that? And he gave a pretty decent answer. So let's hear that.
I disagree with you on the BIP110 stuff, but I think you're good for Bitcoin. I don't want to see you end up hard forking and like rage quitting Bitcoin. Like that wouldn't be a good outcome, I don't think. But like if it did go that far, like if this hard forks, would you like sell your Bitcoin and move over to this new thing?
To the hard fork? Again, it would depend. Like there might not be a lot of point. I think to be honest, most failure scenarios, there's no recovery from. I think if BIP110 fails, I don't think there's any way to salvage anything from the wreckage. I think Bitcoin itself would just carry on, but I think the foundation would be gone in a way that's not immediately obvious. And I think, and this is like a painful thing to admit, but I think I basically would just withdraw from the space, because it's increasingly becoming a thing that I don't resonate with. And I don't like, I'm in Bitcoin because I love it, not because of anything else, right? I really love this thing, and I'm very grateful to the people in it that have made it what it is. And that's why I fight the way I do. So if it were to come to that kind of situation where I think something really did need to be done and it failed to pick up adoption, and we just carried on like nothing happened, I think that would spell the end for me. I don't know, like, I have a job in the space. I don't know what the ramifications with that would be and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I have a YouTube channel. It's not monetized. I don't make any money off it. I'll make a video once every 6 months if I feel like it. It's not like I only do it because I'm compelled to do it. And I think the compulsion would stop at that point, right? So I think it would be sad, is basically the point of it. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, we're all going to die immediately. I think it can be a thing that carries on in perpetuity, but I just would lose the love for it, I think.
You kind of
go.
Partly one of
So, I mean, this is also just kind of a strategic mistake where it comes down to a lot of what Amori always talks about with the game theory, which is like, to make a charge with an army, if you're at the front, you have to be all in, because everybody else is not going to be convinced to go along with you if you're already like 50-50. And so even before they've got to this supposed grand takeover of BTC, he's already like, well, if I'm wrong, I'm going to just be out. I'm just going to get like, that is not a confident, inspiring thing. I mean, yeah, see, Jingle Bob says it's right. If it were true then that he is in it for the ideology, then surely he would stick with the one true Bitcoin. You know, for all their talk and derision of big blockers, will they put their money where their mouths are? And the answer is no. Like, it hasn't even come to the test, which is still 2 months away, and they've already like admitted defeat in a way, because it's like it'll go perfectly or we just give up. And that's going to be a sad thing to see, because clearly he is a passionate guy in Bitcoin and he has put so much of his time and effort and energy into it. And who knows, once it actually goes down, A, how it will turn out. Again, we could always be wrong. Or B, what his reaction will be. It's possible that would trigger a need to reevaluate and find out what he'd missed. And he could, you know, rewatch the BCH podcast episode.
Wait. Hold on. It seems that my OBS, there we go. It lost connection to you for a second.
Okay.
Could you just repeat maybe the past like 20 seconds?
Yeah. So like, we're going to see what happens after he goes through this whole disaster. Basically, you asked me last year if he read Hijacking Bitcoin, would that change things? And either he hasn't read it yet, or he hasn't been motivated to read it, or it hasn't changed his mind. But it's possible that he goes through this and then thinks, oh shit, what was I missing? And have that curiosity to put the pieces back together, watch the Bitcoin Cash podcast episodes, read Hijacking Bitcoin, think through it all, and realize that he, A, had been lied to the whole time, and B, that all his UASF story that he banked all his hopes on was completely fake, and he'd been fooled about that. But that will rely on him having either the motivation, you know, the anger or the resignation to redo that work. Otherwise, he might just be like, well, Bitcoin didn't work, I give up, and we tried, guys. Which, you know, would be vindicating for me and for all the BCH people in a way, because it's kind of like, here we are 9 years into just plowing forward on, you know, the one true Bitcoin, which he has always mocked and derided until the last 6 months. And it's pretty funny for someone to be in your shoes. You know, it's kind of like going to the gym, like on your first day, and like walking in as like skinny guy and just seeing like some bodybuilder just like putting in some massive like lat pull downs of like 100 kilos or something, and just being like, this guy thinks he's so good. And it's like, well, it's easy to think that until you sit down in that chair and try and do 5 kilos. Okay, well, maybe you've got a long way to go, but you kind of don't realize until you have to actually pull the weight yourself. And that's essentially what we're seeing, you know. And it should hopefully be a little bit humbling to him if it plays out that way. Again, maybe he's right, but I can't see it going his way at this point. What do you think?
It would be nice if the compulsion to replace his compulsion to work in Bitcoin was to find out what the fuck happened. Like, it'd be a great asset, I think, for him to be like, here's another Hijacking Bitcoin book from the perspective of a Bitcoiner, like for the past decade after BCH.
I'd read it.
Not that we need it, but I would absolutely read it. And I think it would be more beneficial to the people already in BTC than a book that Roger released.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it just has that, it would have that immediacy that maybe they had also lived through it and experienced it a bit more for themselves, you know? So, and I mean, all this is to say, like, my ideal outcome, what I really hope happens, is it turns into a disaster, because that seems like the writing's on the wall for that. And then he thinks, wait a second, like, what? He goes back, he does the reading, and then he realizes that BCH was right. I would love to have him join BCH, which is why I put all this effort into making all this information public. You know, he was one of the clips that we had in that hoax episode 2 years ago. And I'd been following his channel long before that. And then we did the full episode explaining. I don't think he watched it, which was a shame, you know, like we did all that breakdown. Like somebody made a 2-hour podcast episode about me. You know, I think I'd watch it even if I was. Anyway, I don't think he did watch it until kind of more recently after the Epstein stuff. After I called him out on the Epstein stuff, I think there might, like, at least he might have looked into it a little bit, because certainly his messaging changed after that. He was at least hearing, like, he'd gone from blocking it out to at least hearing it. Maybe not to listening, which is different, you know, but at least hear, like, some of it was seeping in, not at the point of like, okay, I'm just going to put my defenses down and just absorb this and just sit with it, which is what you need when you've found out you've been wrong. You can kind of be like, well, they were kind of right and I was kind of right, and just cope about it, right? So to actually learn, you have to just drop your defenses and think, I'm just, without judging any of this, I'm just going to hear this brand new perspective. And then, you know, obviously sort it out afterwards how it fits in with what you do or don't know. Because once you know that some part of your mental model is flawed, the deeper it is, the more weird the alternative explanation that makes better sense is going to hear the first time you hear it, you know? If it's a surface level thing, okay, throw out these trivial facts that I didn't know, I'll just slot in this new stuff. But if it's like your whole tree of beliefs, it's like quite close to the trunk, that there's a huge branch full of like nonsense, then chopping that off, or at least looking at a different branch that might fit there, is a big ask. So anyway, I'm hoping that's what it'll come to, but probably not.
If he does leave, do you think it'll be like, oh, 5 years, 10 years later, he revisits and then is maybe like, well...
I hope so. I hope so. But of course, by that point, the situation will have completely changed. You know, he will have checked himself out of, I mean, it's just Bitcoin. Like, it's open, decentralized. Everyone plays their own part in the Bitcoin story. Maybe this was his chapter, you know. Certainly it's recorded forever in the BCH podcast. We had last year the poll results. We did that poll of the 4 options. Is he going to save BTC with his nodes? 0%. Seems like that's on track. Capitulate, rage quit, 42%. Minority split, knots, fork, 15%. And defect to BCH XMR, 42%. So it seems like capitulate, rage quit is the leading option here, you know. But time will tell. Anyway, I don't know, any final thoughts on any of that?
Not really. Actually, one more.
Yeah.
2 more months? Come on. Let's just fucking get this. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
Well, that's right. Like, I didn't feel like we could have hashed this over for a full episode, but I was like, it's just not worth it. This is quite an important segment because we have to properly follow up on all our predictions from last year. But like, yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Like, get on with it. And that's what we've said so many times on the show. I don't know when they're just going to start listing. Like, to do a consensus upgrade takes at least a full year. Like, the blocks as was 3 years before SegWit got in, and in a cataclysmic, you know, way as well, right? And there's like, the BCH community does an upgrade every year. And at the start of the chip process, that was like barely scraping by that everyone could get it together on a year, on a much smaller community with people much more aligned. And now we're doing it pretty smoothly. But even then, if we sped it up to 6 months, it would be like too fast, you know? So yeah. And just that they initially were like, no, we'll do a 3-month emergency fix. And then kind of realized like they already lost so much of their credibility. Right, there's so many elements of this that they lost credibility on that was just so easily avoided. They spent ages talking about child porn and CSAM and how that was going to be like end the chain as soon as V30 was out. You know, somebody was going to put porn in a block and like that was going to be the end of it. Of course, somebody probably did do that. I haven't checked, and nobody, you know, but whether they did or did not, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Like, there's already plenty of data embedded in the blockchain. They can't stop that. Or whatever. Oh, spam can be fought at the consensus level. They spent months on that like talking point while everyone was like, no, it can't. You're going to have to do a split, till they finally, oh, okay, we got to do that. Michael Saylor was like his hero for so many years. Oh, he's this great. And now he's like, why isn't Michael Saylor doing anything? Michael Cratter, the same. Oh, what's his name? Matthew Cratter, same thing. What's Michael Saylor doing? Where's he at? You got hoaxed, guys. You got fucking hoaxed. Like, we've been telling you the truth the entire time. Maybe it's time to start listening. All right. Somebody else who also needs to start listening. Oh, shout out. Steve Thurman says Dean Harrison won the main event of Superbike class with a 15 lead over second place. So shout out to Dean Harrison, who's been sponsored racing in the TT Isle of Man motorbike race. I don't know what the official name is. Congrats to him, and well done, Steve and Gareth, for organizing that. That's super awesome. A 15-second lead. I don't know enough about motorbikes, but I assume that's pretty substantial. And I know also it's an event that people die in regularly. There's been like over 200 people have died in it over the last 100 years. And somebody died this year. So he is quite literally putting his life on the line with that. So yeah, shout out to him and great job with the BCH community. Okay, so somebody else who does need to listen to us, David Hoffman of the Bankless co-host, has recently announced that he's sold off all of his ETH. And I want to make a point about this because
Wait. Hold on. I've lost you again. There we go.
All right.
And
I want to restart that segment or what?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So somebody who needs to listen to us, David Hoffman, the arrogant co-host of Bankless, and who has argued with me on Twitter, has announced that he's sold off all of his ETH. So despite all his attempts to dunk on BCH whenever I try and get something through to him, he has actually just completely capitulated on his ETH bags, and all the stuff he said about how ETH was great and is the future was just complete lies. And that's basically the same as Bitcoin Mechanic in a way. It's just funny that people so often come to the BCH community and say, oh, you stupid like niche shitcoiners or whatever, and then we just outlast them. It's like they are so convicted in the moment, but you just give it a little time to play out, and then suddenly, well, turns out I was just lying and or insincere and or wasn't really as committed as I claimed to be, right? So we have a little short clip here of him talking to his co-host. What's the other guy's name? It's slipping my mind. Ryan Sean Adams, talking to him about this idea of crops, censorship resistance, open source, privacy, and security, which is apparently the new focus of Ethereum, according to a mandate document that got released from the ETH Foundation, and which has since created a lot of people just checking out of ETH. Like they just don't agree with this new vision or direction or whatever. And so they're just like, there's just mass quitting, exiting from the Ethereum Foundation. And this, among other things, has apparently convinced David to sell all his ETH. And as much as he will say in this clip that ETH is still amazing, he sold it all. So put your money where your mouth is, basically. So let's have a listen to his justification of the latest state of ETH.
That I believe in.
Oh, well, speaking of David, this is the first time we've had a Bankless podcast, and you are no longer holding Ether. So
that's right.
From Bankless to Ethless, David.
Ethless.
Why? What changed your mind? What happened here?
It's what Laura Shin said, dude. It's like there's not too many parts of Ethereum that's focused on putting points on the scoreboard. I actually think that, like, you know, Vitalik is doing this thing where he's trying to maximize crops to, you know, create Ethereum as a bulwark against some of the worst possible futures of the world. And I think that's great. I think there's actually a part of him who's just adverse to growth. And the time for Vitalik to have like handed over the keys to somebody who could take the momentum that Ethereum had in 2022 and 2023 and run with it and grow it was like back in 2023. But he sees himself as like a protector of Ethereum's soul. And if you understand the trials that Vitalik had to go through navigating all the co-founder mess, you can totally understand and empathize with why he's doing that. But it seems that there are interests that are prohibitive for Ethereum growth to happen, and therefore ETH growth to happen. And a lot of the things that we see on Ethereum, like the layer 2s, all of the banks tokenizing money markets on Ethereum, all this Ethereum adoption is great. The Ethereum network is great. Like Lean Ethereum is also great. And in fact, it doesn't need a valuable ether to do any of those things. Like, which has been some of the counter arguments for Ethereum for forever, is like ETH is just gas. And it didn't have to be that way, but we needed to have leadership to think like that and push forward like that when Ether wasn't gas, when ETH was more money back in a previous era. But now, like, I kind of feel there's just been so much momentum lost, and I don't know how Ethereum gets it back, especially when we have like a leader who's trying to protect Ethereum's crops for 1,000 years and is like somewhat disinterested in growth and adoption today.
So yeah, but in that clip, like, you can just hear so many different threads of things that we've talked about on the show and problems that the Ethereum community has. So firstly, like, Vitalik is kind of mostly running the show, and his clout and influence is so big that he is sort of the de facto leader, which is sort of in true political fashion a good thing to have a benevolent dictator until they start making the wrong decisions, because then A, they're making the wrong decisions, and B, there's also becomes a big problem as people try to change their mind and just eventually defect if they're like, well, there's nothing we can do to get past this one obstacle. And of course, Vitalik, now with his billions of dollars of ETH or whatever, is, you know, he's got a life as well. Like, I'm sure he's a busy guy. So he's not, you know, he's like thinking of ETH as this paradigm shift technology, whatever, crops, censorship resistant, open source, privacy and security. But he's just losing the troops on the ground as they're like, when pump, you know, we haven't had a price gains in a long time. Our ratio against BTC has not got close to where we were. What is all this upgrades and so forth like for anymore? And then, like David says, they're losing ground on being money. Like, BTC is not very money, and ETH is even less money, but they've kind of, you know, got a bit lost on the vision there. What are we doing? It's more just infected by TradFi, or it's just DeFi speculation. And like, yeah, it's just crazy how David says, oh, the layer 2s are great, and the lean Ethereum that Justin Drake is doing, that's going to be great, and this is all great, but I've just sold all my coins because actually it's not great. It's all nonsense.
Paper
right?
hands, David Hoffman.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to make a bit of an example out of him because he's kind of in the same category as Bitcoin Mechanic. I don't know how many of these guys I just have to wreck on Twitter over and over and get vindicated until they actually think, fuck, we should stop arguing with this guy. But in any case, you know, it's not purely just about me as well too. It's just kind of a demonstration that Ethereum, BTC, they're both in this scenario of being like lost. You know, the vision of what is actually the point of crypto, what is the point of Bitcoin, what a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, like they've both just lost the way on that, and they're going to be subsumed by TradFi vultures that have infected the whole system, and they're never going to be money for the world. And that just stands in stark contrast to BCH, where we're doing a great job. Everybody is aligned. Everybody's having a good time. Okay, the community is small, but we're on a strong mission. Everybody's clear with it. And like Fiendish always says, we've got to stay clear on it, because this is what happens if you lose track of it. You know, this is where the problems start. I realized we forgot to play. We had a clip of Joel, his review of BLISS, and actually this kind of ties it together nicely.
I can throw it on.
Maybe we can just let's play that now, because I think what he had to say about BLISS was also quite enlightening on this.
So hey everyone, the Bitcoin Cash BLISS conference just wrapped up. As you can see, the room's pretty empty right now. It was a very good conference, I would say, compared to the other ones this month in particular. It was very focused. The people were very much on the same mission, very aligned. Everyone showed up to the talks. It wasn't a big milling around side event kind of a thing. Definitely focused. The Bitcoin Cash community is building a surprising number of cool tech, and I have a lot of optimism for the community. There's a lot of new faces who are driving things forward. So it's not just a bunch of old school bag holders just trying for one last pump. It's a thriving project, and lots of synergies with the Dash community coming up. Of course, we always talk business, talk adoption, and I think that there's a good chance the communities work closer together in the future. So it's been a great trip. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you at the next one.
And if you watch as well his other reviews, Joel, I mean, it's great he came. Shout out to him, and it was really cool to meet him in person. I'm glad he had a good time. But in that, and also in the other interviews he's done, he's just talked about how things were so much more like aligned and focused at the event, right? For a small community, like a lot is happening and everybody is on the same page. And he and I always argue about maximalism, where he says, no, toxic maximalism is evil and you've got to be willing to experiment with everything. And I say, well, yes, you've got to be open-minded to new ideas, but you need to have your 300 Spartans. You need to have everybody on the same mission, because it's much better to have no Spartan than have one that is either going to defect or fall apart under pressure, because that's just something you can't rely on. So you have to have a committed group of people to do anything great in the world. And we have that in BCH, and it's so good. And this is just, all my attempts to emphasize once again that if we don't maintain and continue that tradition, we'll end up like Bitcoin Mechanic and David Hoffman, just like in this bizarro world of like, what are we even doing here? Why is none of this working? And why am I surrounded by people that are splintering off, chasing their own individual interests instead of building the technology and the vision that I thought everyone was here for?
Now that you bring it up, I am also really curious. When things fail for Bitcoin Mechanic, he said he's going to leave the space. Does that also mean he'll sell his coins?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, who knows? Like he said, and he did caveat it several times, to be fair, he doesn't know, and he goes on, we didn't play all of it, but he goes on to say, like, there's a lot of unknown unknowns. Who knows, how I'm going to react after, it all plays out, if it doesn't go the way I expect, etc. But he has already sold actually a lot of his Bitcoin. I think maybe he's bought some of it back, but sometime in the past year, he's definitely said on somewhere, I've seen him say it, that he had like dumped a lot of his coins, maybe even all of his coins, because he didn't really believe in it. He was like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, the spam is getting worse and worse. It's clearly not becoming money. It's like, so even that, there's just so many mistakes in terms of, if he already sold his coins, he's already kind of given up internally, and then if he admits that if the fork doesn't go well in advance of the fork, the split, then it's already cooked, because everybody's like, we're playing, it's like Amori says, like two cars driving towards each other playing chicken on a cliff. If you already shout out the window, I'm going to swerve, the other guy's never going to swerve. Once he hears you say that, he's like, okay, you're going to swerve. Fine. Let's just carry on. So yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know how much BTC he does or does not have, but losing that kind of true believer from the community is so painful for BTC. More and more of the coins are just held by faceless TradFi that just see it as a stock ticker. And like, you need maximalists, you need them.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. I agree. We need max. I do find like the more, BCH already has so much going on. It's hard to follow. All of this extra stuff, like other chains and other people. Kudos to you for keeping up, because I find very tiring.
Well, I am pretty obsessed with cryptocurrency, and I do also feel it a bit of an obligation that I follow it, for the purposes of this show, right? So that I can bring this in. Like, I don't want my listener base to be completely out of the loop when they're at crypto conferences or when they're talking to people on Twitter or something like that, and just not following like sort of the main narratives and threads of what's going on. Of course, as time goes on, we've had less and less of that on the show. Like, I used to sort of put more of it in because there wasn't enough going on in BCH for us to talk about for full, 2 hours. But now, like, this is just after Bliss. This is what happens every year after Bliss. There's kind of a dip where everyone's like, Bliss was awesome, loads of great stuff, and then it's kind of like everyone's at home, recovering and starting to work on their next set of announcements. So it's just a good time to check in on the rest of the scene. But like you say, there's just more and more going on in BCH, and less of the show is following these. But we're still a small ship in a big ocean, so it's going to be relevant for a little while longer. And with specifically, I mean, the ETH stuff is a little bit more petty. That's me feeling a bit vindicated. But the mechanic stuff, it's a bit more like people really need to see this, understand what's happening, and like get it. Because the BCH community already knows, but people who've started paying attention to the BCH community can see why we think the way that we do. You can go back and you can read the history, but you can also be like, oh, in the last few years, this is what has happened. This is how it's played out. And this is exactly why BCH needs to have made the choices that it has made. Because it's not only the wrong direction to do it the way things are going in BTC, it's quite literally unsalvageable. Like, nobody can save it. It just has to rot and die. Because, it's voice and exit. You just have to choose exit if voice doesn't work. We tried voice, tried very, very hard. And to be honest, Bitcoin Mechanic he's tried hard in the sense that he himself has tried hard. But in the grand scheme of, was the filter effort remotely comparable to the big blocker effort? It's a shadow. It's a shadow of the effort in terms of, how much like the block size war was all everyone was talking about in Bitcoin for 3 years straight. And they've done like 1 year of filter chat, which has been only the trending thing for like 3 months out of that 12, probably. They don't have the miners like riled up. Like, again, it's just 0.3% of the hash rate. They've got some nodes. They're a minority. They've been on stage at a couple of conferences. Yeah, it's just a shadow of the original. But regardless, hopefully it teaches him the lesson. And then hopefully in future, then it will be beyond doubt. It would be like, here's all the BCH stuff. Here's the block size war. Here's why we did what we did. And if you don't believe us, it all repeated immediately afterwards. Here's Bitcoin Mechanic. Here's all what he did. If you can look at those two things and not see the common thread, or you want to have a third round of, we're going to start a CTV split or whatever, like, give me a break. Like, some people just never learn. But I don't think that's going to be a problem anymore. I think 2027, it will be like, okay, BTC is the captured TradFi asset. If you at all believe in the actual mission-driven element of it, that's clearly BCH, which is small but rapidly gaining traction as everyone realizes they were at the whole time. Either jump into that or sit at home and, hopefully you got some gains out of it, kind of thing, All right, message to the community. Do you have a message to the community? I feel like I already just gave my message to the community.
Not really. I've got a shout out, but we can hold on.
Okay, all right. We got to shout out the FundMe subscribers and donators. Majimalu, Eyes on the Ball, Molecular, the show we love, at Cash Stamps, use BCH for the win. So mix a bit. I like big instant, I cannot lie. No op, celebrating the devs, emergent reasons, appreciate what you do. Hope you'll stay grounded in truth and reality. Real money for the world. Cash Dragon, essential work. Thanks. So thank you to all of those. Our donors and patrons, Ricky, Carl, and HP, and our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. Obviously, there's more about BCH at PitcoinCashPodcast.com. The bank run is tomorrow. Everybody remember that, especially with Binance trying to scam us. It's a good time for it, 1st of June, to do a bank run. And do you have a shout out?
My shout out is to the Furu Gurus team, because the Abla, or not Abla, wow, the 1 minute blocks was the first prediction market I've ever participated in, at least one that was like obviously a prediction market. I think like you could argue to some extent BCH Bull is a little bit of a prediction market, but that's just gambling, right? Like so yeah, shout out to them, and I'm pretty sure they did a prediction market for the Dean Harrison event, right?
Yeah, I bet on him to win, so I'm pretty sure I will be receiving some furus. I mean, speaking of that, just just quickly, like we didn't touch on it, but that also makes me think that 1 minute blocks is looking pretty hefty. Like it's already at that 66% or more kind of range, 70%. And then I kind of feel like give it a couple more months, a little bit more research, and it'll just snowball to like, this is the obvious thing to do, right? Like we're still June, July, August, September, October. No, like there's still 6 months. But it seems like the critical mass threshold already seems to me like it's been reached, and the polling sort of confirmed that.
Yeah, I do wish that we had more people respond to the handout in general, but
yeah, we only got 29 out of like the 71 people there. Partially that might have been just because checkout was a little bit messy. That was partially on us. But on the other hand, I guess also some people didn't care enough to do it, or they were already busy chatting or whatever. But isn't it like 30 is the statistically relevant sample size for a lot of stuff? So I feel like we basically hit, like it was a good enough sample size to be meaningful, and 20 said yes. So I don't know. All right, our song to play us out is from the amazing Michael Saylor, who posted up this AI video rap song that he made. Honestly, it's pretty good. I've enjoyed listening to this several times. I think it seems like he didn't actually maybe make it because it's watermarked with somebody else, but he did repost this onto Twitter to 2.6 million views. And I think it really just gets to the bottom of how much of a scam cryptocurrency is, that this kind of thing can get 2.6 million views, and somebody exposing the truth like Roger with hijacking Bitcoin or something. Like it's not even remotely comparable. This is just the lowest common denominator stuff that just resonates with the government boosted traction on Michael Saylor's like hoax account. But anyway, this song is actually a bit of a banger, so enjoy. AI slop for everyone. All right, thanks for listening. Until next time.
Let me recap the earning call. Yeah. They said, Mike, don't touch the Bitcoin stack. Now I'm buying more while they fading into black. SGRC printing, engine running clean, watching debt transform into the Bitcoin dream. Turned on the BTC drive, no shame in my face. 65 billion and I'm still winning the race. They panic when I say, sell a little coin just to prove the whole market doesn't break or get destroyed. Company fine, Bitcoin fine, world still spins. You scream Ponzi while the weak cave in. Bitcoin getting stronger every cycle, reborn while I keep building through the middle of the storm. I'd like nothing better than to rip your wings off. Every short position getting weaker when we lift off. I'd like nothing better than to rip your wings off. We use the equity ATM, yeah, we said it with pride. Then this DRC machine came alive on the side. More tools, more options, more fuel for the fire, while the shorts pray every quarter that the stock expires. I buy Bitcoin like development land. Buy it low, build it up, then expand what we can. Flip the profit back again into more BTC. That's the difference between conviction and jealousy. I like nothing better than to rip your wings off. Watching every short seller realize there's no second best. I like nothing better than to rip your wings off. There is no second best.